Well, folks, it's autumn, and those beautiful yellow, orange, and even red leaves are falling from the trees, depending on your geographic area. And as far as it goes on this table, which this tree that, due to a superglue accident, is now permanently here, it also is giving up its beautiful leaves. But it's more than just fall colors. Pausing. You know, if I were to just talk about these off the cuff, I would say that these maple leaf dice are a unique and exquisite collectible, meticulously crafted from 10 types of natural gemstones and semi-precious stones. Each die showcases the splendor of nature and the exceptional artistry of skilled craftsmen. Instead of traditional numbers, these dice feature a design where the count is represented by the shape of maple leaves, with intricate details carefully carved into each leaf, highlighting the unique beauty. And actually, they are pretty gorgeous. Look at this one. Starlight, Starbright. So these are 10d6 that are sent to you in this beautiful magnetically powered dice box. And this has, let's see, we have natural crystal, blue sandstone, obsidian, cat's eye, special glass. There really is a beautiful selection, especially if you maybe some of the other sets that have sort of the dragon flame coloring here. Gorgeous. A little bit outside of the reach. These are a great set to use. And you can still get 20% off. All viewers of the Man Alone channel can use promo code MANDICE alone for 20% off. DiceNess, thank you so much for sponsoring the channel. And let's get to the action.
So no one told you life was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke. You're broke. Your love life is DOA. You know, it's like you're always stuck in second gear. Hasn't been your day, your week, your month. Hasn't even been your year, but I'll be there for you. Oh yeah, when the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you. Like I've been there before. I'll be there for you. 'Cause hey, you're there for me too. Right.
Welcome to the Man Alone Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Man Alone Solo Role-Playing YouTube channel. Today, we are going to talk about the Red Book. In fact, I'm going to give a rundown on what the Red Book is. A lot of people want to ask about this. It's a hot item. I'll tell you what, it was published in 2009. So when I was in college, this didn't exist outside of like people who got their hands on a manuscript of it. And so it was a thing of real mystique. And it kind of still is for the full version of it. If you've ever seen the full version with pictures, it's about this big, and that much money it takes to pay for it. But this is the reader's edition, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Yes, it doesn't really have any pictures in it, but that's okay, because the pictures one, it becomes more like a coffee table book, to be honest, because the pictures are amazing, psychedelic, mind-blowing, but at the same time, it already was a journal manuscript of all this, and so unless you want to read, I think that says bring with a T at the end, I don't know. It's a lot easier to read this. And Sonu Shamdasani does an amazing job of putting all of this stuff in order, because it's really a huge journal. We'll talk more about that. But what this video is about is actually stimulated by my most recent reading of the Liber Novus, the Red Book. And it was a very, as it often is, a very banal, innocuous moment in the book that got me thinking. And he was talking about, as he often does in his writing, a person's dream. And he'll use the description of this dream as the sort of launching point to discuss a larger topic. And in fact, this definitely was from the intro, because the dream was Jung's, all right? So in this dream, Jung sees, I guess, like what would be a campfire, a circle of stones, but in the middle of it is a hole, and it's a tunnel, and he goes into it, and in the tunnel, he witnesses this protrusion rise up from the earth, and the phrase was something like, "I did not know if this was the Son of Man, Christ, or if it was a phallic symbol, but whatever it was, it terrified me. And then I turned around and my mother was there, and she said, 'This is the eater of all men, but it will also save you.' And then I woke up." Okay, now I'm not going to unpack that dream. I actually don't particularly want to, but I will say that what struck me about it was how much more interesting that dream is than my dreams. My dreams have gotten so boring that, I'm not even kidding, a few years back, I tell people about this, I suddenly became aware that I was dreaming in a dream, a lucid dream, if you will, and I started shouting to myself to wake up because I was so bored. And people kept coming up to me being like, "Have you finished this report yet?" And I was like, I don't have to. I'm asleep. Just please, hello, please. And then I had to go to work. So I worked like double that day because I pulled a shift while I was dreaming. That's more of an extreme example, but suffice to say, most dreams I have are extremely banal, non-remarkable, and more people, this used to be an oddity earlier in my life, but more people are now like, "I don't dream at all," or "I don't remember a single dream, I don't dream at all." And I just started thinking about that, something in psychology and religion, where he's talking about over the course of 5 years, him and a client had talked about 350 of his dreams. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I could put together a repertoire of 6 dream explanations from my life. And I started to wonder if there was something there, like if there was a decrease in dream, not necessarily dream frequency, although it could be that, but dream vividity. And it's hard to say, obviously. Anything regarding dreams is hard to say, simply because the only person who can report on them is a person who had them, and they naturally, there is a difficulty that is well known by every human who has ever lived on recording dreams, and especially interpreting them. It's all just theory. So the more I looked into this, and I looked at it from a psychological perspective, philosophical, neuroscientific, and what I think I won't say conclusion, but what I say, I think my working theory here is that, let's start with a very boring premise that I think many of us can agree to, ironically boring, is that we live in an overstimulated world. And in an overstimulated world, we are constantly fulfilling our whimsy. We are constantly directing our attention toward things and waiting to see if they have a potential to entertain us. And if they don't, we move on. And I started to reflect on what this feels like for me. And I started to realize that what I value about my solo role-playing practice is that I am not outsourcing my imagination. We were talking, as we sometimes do, in the members Discord, link below if you want to join, please come join us, about how why we like cassettes. And by the way, I recently got a box set of cassettes that have blown me away at how good they are. I have absolutely no interest in playing this game anymore, but the soundtrack is fire. And this is a 2 cassette set, double-sided each, of the music from the game Minecraft. And I I love it. And the reason I love it is much of the same reason that I love solo role playing. Now, if you're somebody who says, well, there's no point to that, why don't you just use like the sound quality of digital music is better, even if it non-digital music like a CD is better than a tape. All right, so I like it because when I listen to something on a tape, I have to rewind it, and then I have to flip it, and then I have to carefully open the case. And tape deck cassette cases are one of the worst like made things ever, so I have to not break it, and I treasure it. Why? Because I feel like it. And it is that intentionality that leads me to listen to the whole album, to find new songs each time that I listen to an album. I find new songs that I enjoy, and I appreciate it more because I can't put it on repeat. And I can't find the exact start of a track. So my best bet and what would actually take the least amount of time is just listening to the whole thing. I understand that there are easier ways to achieve that, but when we make things easier, we lose something. And what we lose is that I have not taken part in the process. I have taken myself out of it, and I have allowed myself to be entertained by something that has nothing to do with me. And this has eliminated the possibility of one of the most important things that even in this cassette is represented, which is ritual. I have a ritual. I select the cassette, I rewind it, I press play, I hear that click, I flip it over, I listen to the other side, and I feel good. And even that small ritual lets me have a ritual. And what is a ritual? Well, a ritual is anything that allows us to interface the conscious and unconscious mind. It is an external representation of something that is happening inside of us. That is a thing that used to represent the mosaic of people's entire lives. Even a couple 100 years ago, people's lives had tons of ritual, and now ritual has been replaced with relaxation, ease, and in some cases that's good. I don't want us to get so obsessed with ritual that we become the cult mechanicus in Warhammer, where you have to sprinkle incense before you tighten a bolt on something. And certainly we have things where expedience is important, medicine, for example, safety stuff, engineering, things like that. But in the areas of our lives where we can afford to enjoy ritual, we should. I wish I could play this music, but it's still under copyright. Well, this is under copyright for probably another 90 years. The Red Book is under copyright for another 6 years, which is a bummer. I actually wanted to do a series where I just read the whole thing, but because it was published posthumously, it is copyrighted for 70 years. And while I don't think that the Philemon Foundation and the Jung family estate are going around hunting for people doing too long of quotes from the Red Book, I think if I read the whole book on a video, that might set them off. They might really chew me out. But so yeah, look forward to that video in 2031. But in the meantime, I want to talk about ritual. I want to talk about symbology within ritual. And I want to talk about how having something that is intentionally technologically regressive is actually important for moving ourselves forward and making space, because I think that our unconscious mind itself is an efficient thing. And if it is getting, look, you can't play Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, and not expect your unconscious mind to be like, I can't, that's better than what, I mean, that's got Keanu Reeves in it. I don't have that. And so my thought is that we are outsourcing some of that, most of that actually. And because of that, we are experiencing a dimming of our internal thinking lives. And I offer not a solution for everyone, certainly not a salvation. I offer just this report on how this works for me and how I've benefited from it. So let's actually go to the Red Book first, just to talk about what this is. All right, so the Red Book, or Liber Novus, the New Book in Latin, is Jung's private record of a descent, a deep visionary, a set of deep visionary experiences that he had between 1913 and 1930. It's handwritten, it's illustrated. The illustrations are incredible. So again, a lot of people, when they hear about this, they want to get the big Red Book, and I get it. It's quite expensive, and if you do want to just have it and appreciate it, go for it if your values line up in that way. If not, the Reader's Edition is around $30. It has a sort of, I don't know if that's leather or probably, I don't know. But it is a really nice feeling looking book. And like I said, it has all of the information that you need collated in a very easy, readable way with excellent footnotes and divisions of text and the Liber Primus and Liber Secundus, which is the first and second book. It has the appendix. And so it is nearly 400 pages long. The original is bound in red leather, and Jung chronicles in this a series of super intense, vivid, at times I would describe them as psychedelic inner experiences that he later understood as direct encounters with the unconscious self. The way it reads it's interesting. If you're expecting a straightforward book, this is not it. In fact, I do not recommend that if you have not read Jung before, you should not start with the Red Book. It is the undistillated prima materia from which all later of his important works stems from, but it's scattered. It's told in a series of dialogues and illusions and confrontations with what he characterizes as autonomous figures of his unconscious mind that he is speaking with and learning from. And it's Jung's writing is not difficult in the same way that like reading Deleuze and Guattari is, or like Derrida. It's not this rhetorically opaque, convoluted thing where if you're ever reading very dense philosophical, or in the case of Deleuze, Guattari, like psycho-philosophical texts like this, it's not the case where you're looking at a sentence saying, well, I know all of those words, but I have no idea what they mean when they're put together in that order. That's not what, for the most part, that's not the experience you'll have with Jung. It's more that the realizations and the insights and the dialogue scaffolds. And there are exceptions to this, but as Jung goes through his life and his career, the ideas scaffold on one another. And so if you don't read some of the more first order texts, it's harder to go into the higher ones. And yes, I know that I said, I guess Red Book goes in the opposite direction because it's not scaffolding. It's like the bricks that aren't built into any walls yet. And so I did post on my YouTube page today. I made just a little graphic, as far as I know, of good. Rather than ordering them, I don't know what order you should read them in. I know that Philemon does have a suggestion that actually was pretty well corroborated with what I put up today, but I just put them in 3 categories, which is intro, intermediate, and advanced. So you can go ahead and look at that if you like. And just my opinion, I'm not a Jung expert. I just have read about Jung a lot. And so this is just my impressions. If it's helpful, it's helpful. So yeah, in essence, this is it's a psychological document, but it's also his journal, and it's also a work of art. It's the autobiography ish of a man exploring his own mind as if it were like an undiscovered continent that he's documenting, meeting people, etc. The reason why it happened is because in 1913, at the outset of this, Jung is at the height of his career. He's killing it. He's a respected psychiatrist. He's Freud's protege. And Freud was not somebody who was, you hear about some great minds that are like, yeah, during their life, they were just a pauper and nobody. And then later, people knew Freud. Freud did well. Freud's whole family is an interesting thing to read about. But Jung was his protege. He was president of the International Psychoanalytic Association. And then suddenly things fall apart. He breaks with Freud over these theoretical differences because, again, Freud was an important figure. So just imagine in 2004, Steve Jobs and you're some sort of tech entrepreneur, and Steve Jobs is like, oh yeah, I want you to be my protege, and then suddenly one day you realize I just have a very different vision of the personal computing experience or whatever, and that's how it would be. So this was extremely bold, but for some time he was trying to either get Freud to see it from his perspective, or was trying to square the circle of how to marry the two views together in a way that worked. And I think, if I were to guess, he realized that there are parts of these that can click into each other, and then there are parts of these that just, they're diametrically opposed. There's no way to reconcile them. So he splits with Freud, and then at that time, Europe slides into World War I, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, and Jung, even before that, starts having these apocalyptic visions of like rivers of blood, oceans of blood covering Europe. And a lot of people talk about this, they say this, and I don't. It's kind of interesting. Like, I think some people will cite this as Jung was magic. He was like a soothsayer. I think that Jung had incredible insight. He was not perfect. He was not magical. He's one of, if not the most important thinker in terms of my thinking. But I think that when you're a person who opens themselves up to these kinds of thoughts in the collective unconscious, there's a lot of wisdom in that, and a lot of awareness that you can have, and you can see the bigger picture of things a lot more easily and a lot faster. And so I think that was his unconscious mind putting together things that were sort of, when humans do XYZ, this is the inevitable result. And in that way, I guess, like, the ability to bring up things from the collective unconscious could be called magic. I think that I think it is beyond the normal everyday plane of reality, because that is my belief system. But I think we should resist the temptation to see Jung as like a shaman. Jung was somebody who worked through the channels of Western psychological and philosophical, and to some extent anthropological, theological, mythological thought, worked through all of that to get to realizations that people in the East, maybe, I don't know, that 3,000 years before had arrived at these. But it is important because the West has a lot of, you're dealing with the paradigms set by like Plato and Aristotle. And so I don't see it the way some people see it, which is that, the West is so obsessed with business and conquest. I mean, I agree with those things, but the East was definitely had their focuses on that as well. I think it was just a different paradigm of thought. It was a very important paradigms of thought, and Jung is trying to put these together. And so I don't know why some people look at that and say, oh, Jung has just like took all this stuff that they've been talking about in China since 2000 BC. And it's like, yeah, but nobody did that. So that's really important, and it's what allowed it to make sense for a lot of people that would have never had the ability to put these things together. And so this is, like I said, the prima materia of that. Europe sliding into World War I. The more important headline about these visions is that a dude like could not sleep. He was deeply disturbed by these, and he started losing his grip. This was part of why he broke with Freud too, or made the decision when he did, because he was like, I need to cut and run now because I have this chaos building within me, and I'm not going to let it wreak havoc on my life. I'm going to go and I'm going to face it, and I'm not going to repress it. And so he suspended all procedures, all personal ambition to enter a period which he calls his confrontation with the unconscious. Each evening, he would practice active imagination. He didn't call it that at first, but he would come to this state of that we would probably say is the same state of a mindfulness meditation, right? You focus on something, try to clear your mind till you get to that place where beyond the judgment of the validity of each thought. And he would sort of drift there, focusing on, he would say he would think of a single note, or he would look at something like the corner of this here until that's all he was thinking about, and it would kind of relax the surrounding. And then from that, these images, figures, voices from his unconscious mind would come up before his mind's eye, and he would perceive it as in front of his eye, and he would record these dialogues. These experiences are not fantasies in the casual sense. It's not a wouldn't it be cool if, or I could imagine. He had these interactions. To Jung, they were not these ideas that he had, or these frames that he put his ideas through. To him, these figures were numinous. They were autonomous. They existed outside of his head. They were terrifying. They were real. And a lot of when people get stuck, I think, on Jung's purposes and what he was trying to say, it's usually because they don't realize, because the academic mind is one that thrives on metaphor. This wasn't a metaphor. He was experiencing this. And since a very young age, Jung had some reality grip looseness. What I mean by that is, and I think this is important to some of us who read and are really inspired by Jung, and we might try to do something like active imagination, and we're not having these far out experiences where we're talking to Salome or whatever. And there is, his mother would talk about, from like a very young age, he would have externalized conversations. He would drift into what could probably be called like a transient psychosis from different times. However, my view on this has greatly changed since reading one of Oliver Sacks' last books. It's called Voices. And it just really showed how so many more people than we would think experience hallucinations, and that some of what we experience are hallucinations, but we just see it as baseline and we don't realize it like that. So that's just to say, don't feel discouraged. And also, one of the things that people ask most often is, what book is it where Jung tells you how to do active imagination? None. The idea of a book that tells people how to do something like that is a relatively recent phenomenon. Maybe 1960s starts appearing the idea of like a self-help book. Most self-help books before that time were like how to be a perfect gentleman or something like that. And so these, that's not true. I'm thinking of some that exist throughout time. But the modern self-help book model of like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, doggone it, people like me kind of thing, where it prescribes different practices and exercises, that didn't happen. And so, yes, we're able to extrapolate based on his reports of it, mainly because Jung wrote a lot. And when I say a lot, there was a computer that I had. It was on its last legs. I was definitely pushing it beyond the time that it was able to. It was the kind of computer that was like, kill me. And I got from the Internet Archive the entire collected works of Jung. And it was, I think, the first PDF file that was like over a gig. And it crashed that computer. That computer died. Like, Jung killed my computer. And to this day, I believe that's still available on the Internet Archive for those who have a better processor. But regardless, I just want to put out a little FYI. It's the digital file for that is also being sold on Amazon for $600. So please check the Internet Archive before you purchase something like that. Thank you. Okay, let's wrap up the Red Book here. So the book has 3 parts, Liber Primus, Liber Secundus, and Scrutinies, I think are now called like appendix. And the first book is the beginning of the descent. Yeah, they're still called Scrutinies, but yeah, it's appendixes, mandalas, commentaries. There was also a black book before this. The first book is the start of this, and Jung meets these archetype figures, Elijah, is it Salome, and the serpent. He witnesses the death of this hero Siegfried, not of Roy. And this moment though is important because it's the collapse of his conscious ideals, what might be later called like the persona. It is the beginner's mind. It's the point at which he's like, all right, I'm going to let go of this guy who's a professor, a psychologist, a respected researcher. That guy's got to be dead because I need to just be totally ignorant and receive whatever is coming here. So this first book is like confusion, disorientation, loss of direction, the desert, which we'll talk about, and confrontation with the shadow. We have a pretty limited set of actual archetypes that Jung talks about. But again, we can extrapolate some more, and we don't need Jung to give a blessing to what an archetype is once we understand his definition of symbols and what that means, which we will get to. But the shadow is definitely one of them. Anima, animus, mother, stuff like that. So Liber Secundus, second book. This goes deeper. He encounters a bunch of teachers, companions. At times it feels if you ever read like Dante's Divine Comedy. But notably is Philemon, who is an old... In my note, I have the winged old man, and that becomes Jung's Jiminy Cricket, a la Pinocchio, or as my grandfather called him, Pinocchio. He was so Italian it hurt. These sections have the desert and the anchorite, which are two sections we'll look at that focus specifically on sort of my thesis of this video. I would say the themes in this is limits of reason, the need for mythology, and the birth of the soul's images as symbols. And then finally, scrutiny is these are more reflective. He wrote them later. I think it was at the point where he was trying to see if he could publish this. And in 1930, when it was done, his thing was like, he was like, I can't publish this. This is too, that people are going to think I'm going crazy. Like, I can't do this. And so he just kept them private. But he does talk about in these scrutinies how he is integrating these experiences and how he's struggling to integrate all of this stuff that he talks about here into his life and also his language, how he talks about things, because this was a truly transformative experience for him. He did the work. He did not turn his back on it. He did not make it easy for himself. He did not make excuses. He didn't rationalize a damn thing. He fully faced it. And no matter what people have to say about Jung, and I see some infuriatingly unnecessary critiques of Jung, as if Jung was out there saying, believe in my school of thought, it's the best one. Anyone else's is stupid. It's like, this guy just wrote what he experienced and what he thought. So I don't know why you're like dunking on him as if he is trying to sell you P90X. But interwoven throughout all of these are those paintings. And he does a lot of mandalas, which are important for... I was actually going to do one of these during the video. I guess I completely forgot about that. This is nice. Let me try it. Yeah, so anyways, he at the end of it, he's like, this stuff is too personal, and it's going to be too strange for public consumption. So he was afraid that it might be misinterpreted, which it definitely was, but he thought it would be misinterpreted as psychosis or a sort of mystical delusion. And it wasn't an ego thing. He wasn't like, I can't let people know that I thought. He more was like moving on to a phase where once he had finished this work, he was like, okay, I'm ready. I know what like my purpose is now. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I want to get to work. And so he was afraid that it would interfere with people's ability to sort of receive his teachings. And so he set the project aside and started to turn towards the more systematic clinical works that made him famous, the like psychological type, symbols of transformation, etc. So the Red Book, however, it remained the hidden source behind all of his later work. And he drew on its images to develop concepts that he is well known for, the collective unconscious, archetypes, active imagination, individuation process, and the self as this sort of totality or wholeness of the psyche. And he kept the physical book of the Liber Novus in his study, and he showed it to a few of his close students and family. And he never denied that it was important, but he would just say, I can't publish it. However, it's the foundation of everything I've done since then, but I can't publish it. And I imagine some of them were like, no, man, you should put it on Drive-Thru-RPG. You could do a PDF. You could do a hardcover. Why it did get finally published? So Jung dies in 1961. Jung dies in 1961. And the book passes to his family. And they kept it locked in, you guessed it, a Swiss bank vault for decades. Many people knew that it existed, but almost no one had actually seen it. And then in the 90s, Sonu Shamdasani, who's a historian, persuaded the Jung family to allow a scholarly edition of it and spent years carefully transcribing, translating, adding commentary, getting feedback. The family was obviously very invested in this, and they do have like partial publishing of it. I think it's W. W. Norton, Philemon Foundation, and the Jung family estate. And the first edition was this full color facsimile size, and it weighed 10 pounds, or almost 10 pounds. And then the reader's edition followed. And it was to people that were in on it at the time, it was like a sensation. I mean, think about this. This was this private, mystical diary of one of the 20th century's greatest minds, greatest psychologists, suddenly revealed to the world. It's incredible. I mean, it was, and so much later. I mean, it had been hidden since 61, and I think 2009? Yeah, 2009. So this was 16 years ago, which is kind of surprising. 2009 was 16. All right, so why does it matter? It's not a theoretical treatise. I think some people think of it like that, and I think weirdly, I think it's because there's a lot of like red. I wonder if people think that it's a manifesto because of the Communist Manifesto and because it's red, but it's an initiation document. It's Jung's record of his descent into this place that he excavated and brought back treasures to share with us. And I think though it is not rated as highly anymore, I think one of the most impressive things about Jung, if you take intellectually serious the travails that he underwent, is just his courage. I mean, it's so easy to ignore ourselves, and it's so easy to rationalize our behaviors. I do it all the time. I'm doing it right now. I'm like struggling with something in my life where I'm denying sort of my behaviors around my habits and my uses of my time, and it's just so easy to not say it, and then you say it on a video that you're already 43 minutes in on, and you're like, that was my unconscious mind that made me do that, because now it's on record and I can't deny it. No, I'll delete this whole video. All right, so I think for me, the most important thing about it is it's kind of like Jung showing his work, right? He's like, this isn't, I think sometimes people can think that, the two extremes. Some people, I think, would say psychological theories, philosophical theories are just the end result of people sitting around and staring at the ceiling and then going, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then the other side of that is that the sort of science-based belief now that every psychological theory has to have some sort of empirical note to it, that our own experiences are validated, but our intuitions and our suspicions about the nature of things, those are off the table. Those aren't fair. And I just think it shows his work. His approach to mind it wasn't born from speculation. It was born from this direct encounter. And dude has the receipts. He lived a myth. And to read it is to see what happens when a disciplined mind lets go of control, but does not let go of the ability to record it, right? Because I think that if those things were, if these kind of insights were possible whenever somebody had a deep thought, then everybody who has ever taken a shower or gotten high would be like, have their own red book. But it's simply difficult to reproduce madness. And he just had such a commitment to sharing this information that he was able to do that, ended up not sharing it, but then diffusing it across generations. Okay, so that's the Red Book, and that is what it is, and that is that it's not more than that. And I want to just say that is that I think in this book, and I suppose no, I don't need to look it up. At some point, Jung has this entry where he's like, in a fit of madness, but he's basically saying, don't make a prophet out of me. Don't make a messiah out of me. I'm just a guy. And so what I'm saying works for me, and this is what makes sense to me, but I am a human and I'm fallible. And the way I would say that is one of the reasons why it's so frustrating when you seek, especially when I was in my 20s and I didn't know very well who I was yet, I wanted somebody to tell me how to live. It was to the point where I was like, just tell me what to do, tell me what's true, and I'll do it, right? And this is the kind of thinking that makes people very susceptible to things like cults or self-improvement programs or the combination of them, Nexium. But there is... I think everybody is fascinated by that because everybody who watches something like that says, boy, how could these people be so dumb? How could they be so misled? But there is a part of you that's like, thank God I wasn't at the wrong place at the wrong time, because I was just as desperate, just as hungry for meaning as these people. But we'll never admit that out loud. Don't worry. We'll just keep it between us. There is, I think, this desire to make a sage out of everyone and just say everyone has some sort of secret knowledge, everyone wants somebody to have this secret knowledge that they, once they have it, they'll be able to finally figure out this whole mess. But here's the frustrating thing, and I wish I can give you more than this, but this is simply the most honest and most helpful thing. Nobody has the instruction booklet to you other than you, and nobody ever will. And you should treat with suspicion anybody who claims to have your instruction booklet. Even now, I share this knowledge with you just to help you with process, but not with purpose. You're going to have to figure out like what your conjunction, junction, what's your function. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself. And I know it's frustrating, especially if you're somebody who is not there yet. If you don't know why you're here, you don't know what you're doing, you're constantly trying different things, trying to find that spark. Just stop trying to borrow it from people. Use people's sparks as to inform you of what like a spark looks like or feels like or smells like, but not what it is. Everyone's spark is gonna be their own as well. And those of you who have done that work and are further along on that path, I encourage you to share in the comments your own insights regarding finding that thing. Obviously, for me, my talent is in coloring. I understand if some of you are like feeling a little bit out of your depth here because you're like, wow, do I have to be that good at coloring to understand this? Because if so, I have no chance. And let me just tell you that took me a long time to become this terrible. Okay, so yeah, I would love to hear it. I would bet dollars to donuts that a lot of people's stories about how they finally, and I'm not talking about inspiration, what led you to finally open up your crumpet shop. I'm talking about like, when was the first time or era of your life where you started feeling like okay in your own skin? And I think for a lot of people, it's not going to be some epic transformative experience. Or there might have been an experience like that along the way to inform that. But what I have known just from my own experiences and other people I've spoken to about this, it's often very banal. It's often, in fact, making peace with banality or boredom or low stimulation is the actual thing that is a pathway to freedom. One of the things that came up this time in my reading of the Red Book was Jung's conversation about simplemindedness. And this part had never really struck me before for reasons that some of you probably are aware of right away, which is like simple-mindedness is not really in my vernacular. It is something between an insult and like something you shouldn't say in polite company. But for Jung, it's totally different. And this was the first time while reading it that I took that on, like that I really understood what he was trying to say. And what he is talking about is something very, very relevant to those of you who, like me, used cleverness as a defense against having to suffer unpleasant reality. It's a type of armor, an armor that you can quickly misdirect conversations away from certain things. You became very good at deflecting shots at your ego state so that they ricochet off the wall. And he posits this simple-mindedness as the contrary to cleverness. We're going to talk about the desert, but there's this part where he says he humbles himself, of course. This is, like I said, a big theme of the first part. And he says, my reason, my science, they've left me. I'm utterly without resource. And he's not putting himself in this state of despair for its own state. He's recognizing that the intellect, the thing that divides and analyzes and categorizes, it cannot perceive what the symbol and the image are trying to say. Cleverness defends against mystery by explaining it too quickly. And if you look at Kant and his definition of the sublime, it's when we approach something that is beyond our ability, that fills us with so much awe and dread and the impossibility of it. And then in order to stop ourselves from bursting, we sort of put a framework onto it. And cleverness is the ability to put that framework on something really quickly before it bursts your neurons and germinates other things in your head. For Jung, it's this desert that burns away the intellectual pride, and it leaves his simple mind. This is the humbling. It's not stupid. It's undefended. It's receptive. It's capable of that wonder. It's what needs to be entered in order to be open to the unmediated tidal wave of the psyche. It's this sort of attitude of directness, willing to see things as they are. I'm not going to try to put a genus species categorization on them. It's the child's mind. It's the state children would inhabit, or like Cro-Magnon would have. They would just see things for what they are, or like animals, right? I mean, I would say that it's not bereft of all higher ordering brain functions, but it's what anthropologists are probably going to correct me on here, but it would say it's like pre-rational mind, or the participatory consciousness. You're there, you're participating, you don't necessarily have a vote. And so let's go to the desert here, this section where Jung talks about allowing this to serve as a purification point of his mind. So this is the point in the book where he's had this flood of these overwhelming, terrifying inner images, and then suddenly they stop. And this, what was a like garden, overgrown garden, a luxurious jungle of many different flora and fauna and colors and fruits, it just evaporates into this vast, sterile expanse of desert. It's got nothing. Everything is stripped from it. It's just gray rock. And that is then that feeling spiritually, emotionally, imaginatively, that's what fills him. And so he at first sees this as a punishment. Sixth night, my soul leads me into the desert of my own self. I did not think that my soul is a desert, a barren, hot desert, dusty and without drink. The journey leads me through hot sand, slowly waiting without a visible goal to hope for. How eerie is this wasteland? It seems to me that the way would lead so far away from mankind. I take my way step by step, not knowing how long my journey will last. Why is myself a desert? Have I lived too much outside of myself in men and events? Why did I avoid myself? Was I not dear to myself? But I've avoided the place of my soul. I was my thoughts, after I was no longer events and other men. But I was not myself, confronted with my thoughts. I should also rise up above my thoughts to my own self. My journey goes there, and that is why it leads away from men and events and into solitude. Is it solitude to be with oneself? Solitude is true only when the self is a desert. Should I make a garden out of the desert? Should I people a desolate land? Should I open the airy magic garden of the wilderness? What leads me into the desert, and what am I to do there? Is it a deception that I can no longer trust my thoughts? Only life is true. Okay. So he has this flood of visions. It dries up, and he's walking around, and he does have a conversation with some of these figures, autonomous figures that rise up from the river of the unconscious, that are kind of challenging his suppositions of it, and eventually he realizes that, like, this isn't a punishment, it's reality. But it's reality that happens when one burns away their illusions about what reality is. It's the soul's landscape. And it's the landscape of the world that one lives in when all of the old gods and noble ideals of the past have died. The desert exposes the undercrust, what remains when culture and belief and intellectual mastery are gone. It's an emptiness that is, it looks and feels unbearable, and especially because it was mirroring his own interior desolation. And so at first he resists this, as we all would. No, please, I need an image. I need inspiration, because something, come on. I had all these visions. I'm sorry that I said they were overwhelming me. I want them back. I want to be filled with this stuff. But he starts to realize that this barrenness is the place he's been avoiding, right? He talks about, like, the affairs of men, and he would try to get involved in whatever, scholarship and social stuff. And then when he was by himself, he would forget how to be himself to himself. And so he would stay this person he was in public, and he would lose touch with this because he was trying to avoid this desert. But that's the realization, is like, this desert is me. I've completely neglected the tending of my internal garden. And so the hopeful thing he finds, though, is it's not a true desert of sand. It is soil. And it's the beginning of transformation. Yes, it's sterile. It appears sterile, but that's only when it is burned away. That's a fire of consciousness that has sort of purified. And so he concludes there that to flee this desert, to say, I can't take it, this is too scary, there's nothing here, to do that, that's an illusion. So say, well, forget it. I'm just going to, like, build a bunch. I'm just going to turn around here, and I'm going to have a party. I'm going to have a cocktail party. I'll invite people. Put a carpet right here. That'll be good. Some tables, and it's like, dude, there's still the desert under there. No. I don't want to talk about it. Right? That's what most of us do. I do that, but we can't lie about it. Wherever you are right now, keep digging. Like, if you keep digging, eventually, what do you hit? You're going to hit rock, no matter where you are, unless one of you is watching this from the future. No, even then. Screw you, future person. So yeah, he's like, I can escape this desert, but that's what I always do. And for once, I'm confronted with the truth of what I'm doing when I do this, because it's sort of this unconscious fugue normally. But now he's there. He's looking, and he's like, whoa, this would be so easy to run away from here. And eventually, he realizes this desert grows within a man who refuses to acknowledge it. Because what is going to grow? You're not watering anything. And At the same time, he realizes that the soul needs this desert stillness to gestate something. And he uses this dryness, this drought, but the dryness of this, the dryness of the womb is the beginning of fertility. And we have to come to terms with that if we want to start growing something, okay? Now, to swing back really quick to what I was saying at the beginning of the video, we've got a lot of astroturf out here. We've got a lot. We're Vegas. We're pumping in just billions of gallons of water. We are just making this little it's fine. Everything's good. It's not sustainable. And so this hyperstimulation is just covering, it's just set dressing. If we really want something fulfilling, if we really want something real, then we can play the digital music file, but or we can take a little bit longer. We could put the tape in, we can rewind it. We can grow the palm tree. We can grow it. Why not? Why not grow it? We want there to be that artificial palm tree there. We know it is, though. We know it's artificial. Let's grow one. That's the thing that is nearly impossible to do with all of this shit. Now, this is actually one of my favorite parts. So later, he comes back to, he's wandering through this desert, and he finds this old dude, the anchorite, which is like a monk, a hermit, anchorite. I think more hermit than monk, right? Maybe it is like a monk. Well, okay. Here, let me find that. Yeah, and actually might be. The anchorite is in Liber Secundus. But on the following night, I found myself on new paths. Hot, dry air flowed around me, and I saw the desert, yellow sand all around, heaped up in waves, a terrible, irascible sun, a sky as blue as tarnished steel, the air shimmering above the earth. On my right side, a deeply cut valley with a dry riverbed, some languid grass and dusty brambles. In the sand, I see the tracks of naked feet that lead up from the rocky valley to the plateau. I follow them along a high dune. Where it falls off, the tracks move off to the other side. They appear to be fresh, and old, half-worn-away footprints run alongside. I pursue them attentively. Follows the footprints, finds a door. Wooden plank forms a door where a cross has been painted in red. I open it quietly. And then there's this text back and forth. Am I disturbing you, Father? You do not disturb me, but do not call me Father. I'm a man like you. What is your desire? I come without desire. I have come to this place in the desert by chance and found tracks in the sand up there that led me in a circle to you. You found the tracks of my daily walks at daybreak and sunset. Jung, excuse me if I interrupt your devotion. It's a rare opportunity for me to be with you. I've never seen an anchorite. There are several others whom you can see further down in this valley. Some have huts like me. Others live in graves that the ancients have hollowed out in these rocks. I live uppermost in the valley because it is most solitary and quiet here, and because here I am closest to the peace of the desert. Myself, have you already been here long? Anchorite, I have lived here for perhaps 10 years, but really, I can no longer remember how exactly long. It could also be a few more years. Time passes so quickly. Jung, time passes quickly? How is that possible? Your life must be frightfully monotonous. Anchorite, time certainly passes quickly for me, much too quickly even. It seems to me you are pagan. Then they argue back and forth. Jung's like, no, I was raised in a Christian faith. Well then, how could you ask me why time drags on? You must know what preoccupies a man who is grieving. Only idlers grow bored. And so I really do like how Jung keeps saying things to this anchorite, and he's like, what are you, a child? Are you a fool? What do you mean? What do I occupy myself with? I read the Bible over and over and over again. So, like you do when you just meet somebody, Jung pretty quickly confesses, I'm utterly sterile. I can't create anything. No images are coming to me. It's just this desert everywhere. And he's like, I'm afraid that whatever is the source of my imagination has died. The anchorite tells him, no. This is how the manifest divines or how the divine manifests when the soul has gone too long chasing its own creations. Okay, let me say that again. He says, this is how the divine manifests when the soul has gone too long chasing its own creations. Right? And so, again, when I say that I do not believe that I have ideas, I believe that my creativity flows through me. I am the artisan, perhaps, but mostly the observer. This is what we're getting to what I mean when I say that. So when the soul chases its own creations too long, I'm the one creating things. What amazing thing will I create next? The divine steps in and gives you a gift. And that gift is blank, a desert. Silence and emptiness are the divine in this case. It appears as negation. God withdraws to teach you reverence and presence. He tells Jung that you have to learn to wait in silence, to hold the desert within you, rather than fill it up with a bunch of false activity. Only through patience, stillness, accepting the quiet boredom, does that living image return, and the divine transmutes again to this like technicolor dream, right, that flows through you. And the anchorite basically says you have to renounce. You have to renounce your stop demanding visions. Renounce that way of being, jerk. You have to become receptive. When you demand these things, your cup's already full. Nothing else can get poured in there. Okay? And this is the most important thing I have come to understand, and this is why I'm able to produce things every week. Because imagination cannot be summoned through willpower. It can't. And every time I experience difficulty with this channel, with creating videos, as I have been lately, and that's why I return to the Redbug, is because I demand, like, where's my great idea? Come on, I'm a great idea guy. Where is it? Nope, you get nothing. You get the desert. And of course, every time I get the desert, even though I'm 20 years on from when I first even cracked the Red Book open, every time I forget, and I'm like, what the hell? Where is everything? Put a palm tree over there. Let's have a cocktail party. But that's never the answer, and I have to go through this whole rigmarole, and I suppose it gets a little shorter now. It doesn't last months anymore. It lasts like a week. But I go through this week of being like, I'm going to will this into existence. Look at how much time between this video and my last. Every single day until about 3 days ago when I gave up, I was like, I have this great idea. I need to make a video. I couldn't put anything together because I was demanding it. All right. So these inner figures, these people that Jung talks to, these components of his subconscious mind, these geishas, these people, they start coming out when you stop treating them as property, because they're not. They're floating down the river. And just because you can see them doesn't mean they're yours. All right. So the moral heart of the anchorite is, when the world goes silent, that's when the spirit can start to speak. But it is not in words that we yet understand. And that barrenness is this sacred place. It is the prelude to new fertility. It marks the shift from the heroic ego, who I demand meaning, tell me, open the vaults, to the servant ego, who waits on the psyche. Now, the desert and the anchorite are sequential for a reason. There's some stuff in between, but they link. In Jung's visionary framework here, the desert is the objective state of psychological anesthesia. It's the world of the soul when libido has withdrawn. And for Jung, libido is life force. It's not just sexual energy. It can be, but it's anything that wishes to create, procreate. It's like joie de vie. It's, I want to be in this world. I want to fertilize, the world with ideas or other. And so it is, the libido is withdrawn. You're in this desert, and then the anchorite is the figure who appears when one can finally bear it. And this person who I have come to understand through the times I've read this is like, I always say to myself, who is the anchorite? Who is the anchorite? And then I finally realized this time, it's Jung. It's Jung. That's why he keeps calling him childish. It's him. And my anchorite, it's not the anchorite. Mine's called the Inquisitor. And damn it, I shouldn't have said that, because now it's going to sound like, well, what's mine called? I need one called the Lifeguard. I have a figure similar to the anchorite when I am able to achieve an active imagination. And the Inquisitor is not really, I'm not going to get into it, but the point is that one's me. And it's the place I'm going to. And I realize this because every time I get to this place, which is not the same as Jung, but it is this place of catharsis and impotence, to keep using the same metaphor. When I finally reach the place of impotence where I'm like, oh yeah, I can't create. I just need to be humble, and I need to allow the eternal creative light to shine through me. When I get to that, whenever I am humbled enough and I meet this old wise person, I just think they're so cool. I think they're so, I just admire them so much. And I realize it's like, that is the version of myself that I wish to be. And he's not an inquisitor. It's not like Inquisitor Greyfax from 40K. It's not like, yes, my son, now I will go exterminatus a star system. Anyways, how can we put this into a broader frame? Well, every creative renewal period requires this like psychic desert phase. And this is a time when imagination has to die so that it can be reborn free of possession. And when it doesn't go through this, when it says, no, I must be the one who creates, I must be the artist, I must be the genius. Well, what happens? You, let's just say it's why the sequel sucks. It's the same stuff. You just kind of rehashed it again. If you want something truly new and inspiring, you got to, as my great-grandmother would say, you got to shut up your mouth. I just want to add to this, too, that sometimes when we get into this mystical space, we say, oh, the thing that you want comes to you when you no longer want it, right? This principle does hold water, right? I mean, if you look at attraction, while it's maybe harder to prove that not wanting something brings it to you, it is most certain that wanting something or someone too much pushes them away from you, because most people don't want to take on that level of obsessiveness, or it scares them. So there is, like, in a sense, when I say I have to stop willing creativity to happen, sometimes people can come away with that, with this thought of like, oh, so I need to have like a certain coyness about it, right? Like, oh, I don't want it. I don't think I can be creative. I just hope the divine wants to come and illuminate me. It's not that. And in fact, I don't get eureka moments. And maybe some people are different than this, but what usually happens is I will have some ideas, and I'll feel this creative spark, and I'll be like, oh, this is so cool. I should put something together like this. And then I build it out, and I try to figure out a way to explain it, or I try to figure out a way to demonstrate it, or and I do all this work, and then I start to feel desperate. Like I cannot figure out what I should say that's interesting. I don't know. And then finally, when I give up, it rewinds me all the way to the start where I go, oh yeah, I originally just wanted to tell people about this. That's great. And so I'm always reacquainted with something that I thought wasn't good enough, but then I see the way that most people like me probably drift from the singular wholeness of that thing, and we try to make it super elaborate, and it's no fun. It's why it's better to eat a grilled cheese than it is to watch a grilled cheese being made, than it is to read a recipe for a grilled cheese, than it is to look at the chemical symbols of lactose, galactose, everything that goes into a grilled cheese. This is the thing. This is watching the thing. This is making the thing. This is studying the thing, right? As we get closer to the source of it, it becomes more pure. And because of that, pure ideas, they have a lot of traction, right? And so, for instance, for this video, I could have done it like a man on the street thing where I'm like, excuse me, I'm going around trying to figure out what's your impression of the Red Book? Or can you give me any wisdom? But how about we just talk about this? Speaking of, let me carry on. And so now, also, just to refocus us for a second, there is this, in order to create a sort of generative font of inspiration, of dynamic creativity, of ideas, of new pathways, of new connections, we need there to be this space, in a space designated as imaginal, but that is ready to receive whatever it is. I want you to take a look at this. See that? That's I think it's a sewer dungeon. It's got 1 inch by 1 inch squares here. And about a regular model will fit right there. I want you to look at this. And like I said, if you have something similar, it has to be very simple. In fact, and in case you're curious, I'll put the link for these down below. They're fantastic. They're Tenfold Dungeon by Gale Force 9. And they're just these boxes. Just boxes. So happy I found them because I was about to take out a second mortgage to like purchase terrain. And this did what I wanted. I didn't need all the terrain because it wasn't the terrain that I was looking for, actually. I found out. What I found out is I wanted space. I wanted a place that was designated. I even like that it's like walled off where something could happen. And what I want you to do, I'm not going to place anything here. I just want you to look at this box. I want you to look at it, and then I want you to wait honestly. And what I mean by that is when you wait dishonestly, you are analyzing, you are measuring, you are testing. I want you to just look at it and think of what happens here. What can happen here? What can happen in a room like this? If you want to pause it, you can, but what can happen in this place? To wait honestly for an answer to that, to wait humbly, is what we're really looking for, right? It's a desert. You need, especially if you have trouble if you're in like a writer's block state, if you're in just a solo play block, if you're just feeling uninspired, if you're feeling like you just don't create anything, let go of that urgency for a second and go to the box. Boredom, silence, emptiness. It's not failure. It's psychic fasting. It is the desert state that precedes renewal. All right, so I want to change gears here and try to, in a very simple way, to talk about symbols, what they are in the simplest sense, according to Jung, how they function in dreams and myth, and then how that connects to the practice of solo play and how we can maybe relate it all back to where we started, to the Red Book. But I just wanted to add to the last point I left off on. I just don't want to be misunderstood that I'm not referring to when I say we have to make a space, a sacred space or something like that. I mean, that's how I think of it. You don't have to think of it like that. But when I say that we create a drought, that we create a blankness so that we can invite something to grow there, to be gifted with new life, creative ideas, inspiration, I'm talking about that actual thing. And I mean it. It's not a metaphor, and I am definitely not talking about like a dopamine cleanse or a digital retreat. Those are second order considerations for me. Yes, I think a lot of those things, we all know, those things get in the way. Notification dings all the time. You can't reach, you can't become a bodhisattva if you're like getting, like your Tinder account is giving you the midday swipe rush or whatever. You can tell I've spent a lot of time on Tinder. The midday swipe rush, of course. But yeah, I understand that people are looking for pathways to enhancing creativity, and that it's not always like, I want to be the most creative or I want to make a lot of money or whatever. But I also just will not talk about this in a way that's like pragmatic or efficient or the most bang for your buck or anything like that, because that's the kind of stuff, that's how we get to like Whole Foods magazines at checkout that tell you how to how you can optimize your yoga practice to usurp the current CFO and get them fired for crimes they didn't commit or something. Like this is very easy to wield this stuff in dangerous ways, and sometimes people will try to disassemble this stuff and they'll be like, well, just admit it though. You want this thing. You're saying you don't want it, but yeah, I'm not going to talk about something in a way that I don't want to talk about it, because the way that we talk trains ourselves, it trains our minds of what to expect. And words are symbols, and symbols are powerful. Sometimes words are more powerful than we realize. That's why spells and incantations, like that's what they are. It's that you can say something to somebody that destroys them. And you don't have to say boil, toil, and trouble, but you can say there's something that I haven't told you about, and I think you need to hear it. Or your father had a fall. You know, these are things that they're spells that are cast on a Tuesday of no note at 2 p.m. And so I just I don't think that everything needs to be deconstructed into oblivion, because I'm trying to avoid oblivion, man. So, all right, what's a symbol? So I'm going to try to say this in a way that does not make me sound like I'm completely up my own ass, because I wrote like a first draft of notes for this, and I was just like, what am I even talking about anymore? So here's what we're going to do. For Jung, a symbol is the form of something unknown. It's the form something unknown takes when it wants to be known. Okay? It wants to be known, but it doesn't speak the same language. It's not just a sign or a metaphor. A sign points to something we already understand. Red light means stop. A symbol points to something we don't yet understand, something that is still unfolding. And yeah, you could say, oh, a feather is a sign. I know what a feather is. No. If there's a sign with a feather on it, that would be a sign. But the feather itself, like that feather, a feather exists in your mind as a separate thing from what it actually is. Like feather. That means this thing that it's on a quill that a bird has, but it also has a feeling to it. And sometimes that these symbols carry a lot of psychic energy. A dove, oh my gosh, a dove carries so much power. It is so baked into people's into the collective unconscious, right? It has such universal meaning. It's still unfolding. A dove can mean something at one point in your life, and then it can mean something totally different. Yeah, well, I guess this is all birds here, but the mouth, oh boy. Baldness and hair. Yeah, all of these things exist on like so many different levels. Spine, bone. Oh, that's cool. So when the psyche encounters an experience that's too large, too complex, too mysterious to directly grasp, this could be an actual thing that's breathtaking, or it could be a thing it's psychically huge, an emotion, an intuition, a deep truth. When the psyche encounters something like that, it produces an image for it, and that image is a symbol. It says, this thing is so big, your head would pop. So here's a symbol, and that symbol will contain all of this stuff in it. When that symbol appears to you, you will feel certain ways, you'll be moved certain ways, you'll be inspired certain ways, you'll be discouraged, you'll be encouraged, you'll be hopeful, you'll be miserable, you'll be sad, whatever. All of that stuff is packaged into it, and the psyche sends it up. That's here. I can't speak your language, conscious mind, but I'm trying. Here's the best I can do. You know what that is, right? Here, a feather. You know what that is, right? And it's like a bridge between the conscious mind, what we can name and think about, and the unconscious. All right, which is this vast field of what we can feel and intuit, but we can't quite articulate. The symbol carries energy between these two realms. It lets the unknown enter awareness slowly and safely. Because again, if we were to just get, I guess it wasn't intended this way, but I suppose it would, to get like full gestalt images from the subconscious mind, would look like when Neo downloads karate in the Matrix. You're just getting the entirety of karate, and you're like, right? Because it's too much content. Yes, the river of the unconscious can handle that, because that river is infinite long and extends between all living beings in all times. But our brain is like a buoy. And so dreams and myths now, those are the natural habitats of symbols. They're both expressions of the same process, which is the psyche translating invisible experiences into these visible images. In dreams, the symbol appears in its private or personal form. A lion, a collapsing house, a child, a flood. Think about those again, but just like hear the word. A lion, a collapsing house, a child, a flood. the smell of an orange. I don't think that's a symbol, but I think that that's a good example of how we can understand a language that we can't necessarily speak. One of my friends is the child of immigrants, and he will have these conversations with his mother, who speaks Russian, and he will respond in English. He can't speak that language back, but he understands it. And so it's like we understand what an orange smells like. I can't really describe it except with the crappy smell words. Loamy, citrus, right? Which is just like all these smell words just steal from the other senses. Sweet. I feel compelled to say spritzy, but that's not what it smells like. It just spritzes, right? So there's something like there's a way that you are able to think of the smell of an orange, because you can, right? You can smell that. How the hell are you able to do that right now? There's no orange around you, but you can. It's because this data is pushed up to the conscious mind. And you could say, oh yeah, it's like if you call it data now, then yeah, okay, well, how do you read that data? Do you have a picture of a bunch of ones and zeros flicking through your mind? No. So how's that happening? Well, you don't know. Well, how is your brain doing it then if you don't know? You see what I'm saying? I don't know why I sounded so confrontational. So in dreams, these symbols, they're in this private, personal form. Each one, the house, the lion, the child, each one stands for something bigger than itself, but not in this like coded one-to-one exact equal way. They're living metaphors for what the unconscious is trying to tell you. It basically is playing like charades with you. It can't say the thing exactly because, again, you are, it's just too complex, or forget that. It just doesn't speak your language, man. It just doesn't. You know, I mean, it's like me trying to explain why someone from born in a different country that speaks a different language, like, why can't they communicate? Why can't they just speak in that language? They can't. All right. And so this is, I guess, interpreting dreams is like going to an ESL class or something. Yes, I know that's very English-centric of me. But in myth, the same forces, those same symbols appear in a collective form. Gods, heroes, monsters, journeys, deaths, rebirths, epic tales. This is the shared symbol of humanity's inner life. And Jung called dreams personal myths, and myths collective dreams. And it kind of makes me think right now of like Inception when they talk about shared dreaming. And that's a movie, which is interesting that it's in a movie. But they're just different scales of the same symbolic process. And so when we lose the ability to engage symbols, when we treat everything literally or distantly and intellectually, dreams start to dry up and myths turn into entertainment instead of revelation. That's why there is a huge contingent of the general denizens of YouTube population that would not watch this video, or they wouldn't, they would say, why are you wasting your time on this? Like, it's just this, it's all made up, you know, everything is made up now. That is the mark of a well-washed brain, is like everything is just made up. Either it is empirical or is made up. I mean, it's like decided. And this is, I would attribute this to the loss of something that used to be a part of people's lives every day, and now it's almost gone. But it's the reason why I listen to a cassette, because you just get it in small ways, but it's ritual. Ritual was this opportunity for the inner life to be represented outward. And it gave this chance for the unconscious and conscious mind to communicate. And also, when it's meaningful to a large group of people, it is confirmatory. It helps you to understand that these things that you feel, these things that you know without knowing, that you barely grasp, this revelation, other people feel it too. And you do it together. That's peak ritual, but also just everyday ritual is so important. And if I cannot create an altar, maybe I'm not oriented that way religiously, or I just don't think, maybe my religion says I shouldn't create altars outside of a certain place. This will serve the same purpose, this area right here. Because what happens when you solo play? You are externalizing an internal experience. But here's the gem. It goes both ways. The communication goes both ways. That is why we feel so filled when we create something. That's why we look at that empty box and we're like chomping at the bit. We want to get in there. We want to create something, right? But it's when we complete that circle, that communication of the inside and the outside, that's what really makes it feel special. And that's why people like me go cuckoo bananas over this and try to get everybody to do it. And that is also why people are like, you can't, so why would anyone play alone? I don't know, man. Why would anyone do anything? I mean, if we could deconstruct everything into oblivion, but it's like, I think 99 to 101% of people that would say, like, what is the point of solo playing? They have spent $340 on Candy Crush this month. That is a statement of absolute objective true lies. Great movie. The desert and the anchorite, they're sequential for a reason. Again, they are because the desert is the objective, is the blankness that we have to succumb to. We have to yield to it. And the anchorite is actually the reward. It's like the psyche saying, you've endured silence, and now I send you the gift of silence, the teacher of silence. And what's crucial is that the appearance of that hermit is not a reward for searching harder, but it is the fruit of waiting honestly. That's the reversal of the ego's instinct. It must consent to not creating before a single creation can begin. Every creative renewal requires a desert phase. It must lie fallow so that it can be reborn free of entitlement of possession. Solo role-playing, approached with the right spirit and intention, reopens that symbolic channel. It gives you structured, ritualized space where symbols can emerge and be interacted with. When you sit down alone to play, here's a few things that might happen. You create an imaginary world, which is a symbolic space. You adopt a character, which is a symbolic aspect of yourself, not your whole self, a symbolic aspect. You invite chance through dice and oracles, so you're submitting to that sort of like the mystical infinity of the unconscious, and you respond and record. You turn the encounter into a story, a reflection, art. But what don't you do? You don't know you're doing any of it because you're just playing. That's what's so cool about it. The game becomes a miniature dream landscape. As you play, themes, images, they start repeating. Deserts, thresholds, wounds, mentors, storms. Over time, these aren't just game elements anymore. They're your psyche speaking in symbol. I want to talk about symbols? $15 off because it got dinged. I like it better with the ding on it. this book. This book is so good. We can't talk about Dolmenwood. I should have bought the cloth map. It was like whole cloth map. If I had that cloth map, then I'd be happy. Oh shit, it's recording. This is not even a stretch at this point. This is exactly what Jung was doing during the period where he wrote the Red Book. He wasn't writing a theory. He was playing within the psyche. Let's see if this sounds familiar. He withdrew from the demands of ordinary life around him. He entered into a space of silence. He began speaking to figures and landscapes that rose before him. He had these visions, the serpent, Philemon, the desert. They were symbols emerging from the unconscious. He didn't analyze them at first. He dialogued with them. He painted them. He let them transform him. Jung was solo playing. It was serious play. I mean, he was losing it, so I don't want to cheapen that, but it was serious play. It was ritualized imagination, guided by respect for what appeared. See, now I'm getting jazz here. I can't wait to play. He took it seriously. He respected it. What was before him was real. And I talk about this all the time. If you want to have an engaging play, if you want to come up with solo ideas, you want to have an amazing session, you have to commit to the reality of that scene. Then, once you do that, there's no question of what to do next. Because you already know how to do this. There's there. And what Jung discovered, that the psyche speaks through symbols, that meaning is born when we give those symbols form. They became the foundation of all his later psychology. Here, let's see if we can find some symbols in Dolmenwood. Hold, please. Remember this phrase? The best possible expression for something we do not yet fully understand. Well, what do we do if we don't fully know about something? How about some animals? You guys need some ideas for animals? I think there's some here in this Dolmenwood book. Just a few. I mean, a lurkey? Come on. That's one of the most anxious. It is both ancient and anxious. What else? Here's a list of edible plants. Here's a list of edible fungi. Edible fish. Oh, look at these encounters. Just a few regional encounters here. A witch owl. That's an archetype. That's a symbol. I mean, this, I gotta stop because honestly, right now I feel like overcome that I'll delete this whole video just to get back to actually, you know what? I'm gonna solo this tonight. Friends, these games, these books, they are made of these symbols. Even the Tolkien races, the reason that they emerged the way that they did, the reason why elf and dwarf and human and goblin, the reason why those feel so right, and why it feels weird when we mess with them too much, is because they are all part of the cast of characters in this collective unconscious. They represent something. Why is it that elves almost universally are wise, old, beautiful, young, ancient, prime of their lives, arrogant, fast, shrewd? Because the elf is like, it's there somewhere. We've always, we know what an elf is. And we know what elf is. It was a great TV show. I'll do an episode on elf sometime. A symbol is how the unknown makes itself known, the living bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. Dreams and myth, those are the natural language that symbols use, and they're drying up. They're drying up. There is that dryness, that drought, and that's real. But is it possible that we can see that as a natural order of things? And can we feel called to now germinate new things in that place? Because we're seeing the result of like deconstruction, right? The argument to oblivion. Well, you don't know that exists. You don't know. And we reached like the bottom of that. And we're like, cool, we did it. We toppled all of the structures. All of the traditions were junk. All of the old rituals, all of the old power, they're all crashed to the ground. Now we can finally have some fun. Well, all right, I'll start after you. What's that? There's no fun to be had here? Well, it's the desert. And so now I can whine and complain and lament the old days when there was a lush forest here, or I can get planting. I believe that the work that we do to harness and to breathe life into the symbols that are sent to us from our psyche, from the collective unconscious, the work that we do of creating these stories, creating these worlds, solo role-playing, I believe it's some of the most important work that we do, even if no one knows about it. And I feel like we are needed. We are called. And I know that there are people who would say that focusing on something like that is selfish, narrow-minded, self-indulgent, and that there are more important things to do, and we should all be out there helping people. First of all, it's not an either or. Just because you do one thing doesn't mean you can't do the other. And the second thing is, it's not working. We need to be nourishing ourselves with the waters of this river of the unconscious mind. I mean, it is the life force. It is the libidinal joy of living. And if we try to spread happiness and joy and care and love without filling our cups first and drinking of that and nourishing our souls, all we do is like push around the same smear on the windshield. It's not washing away. It's just not working. And I know that for some people that is anathema, that like to sit at home and create an imaginary setting and then move a character around in it. Like, first of all, that's childish. You need to be doing something more important. All I can say is that I am a better person because I do this. And when I am a better person that is happier and filled with a sense of joy, I don't really have to try to share it with others. I just want to. Now, if the choice here is to try to be virtuous by some sort of outside standard, then yeah, it's pretty self-centered to just sit at home and do this when there are so many people in need. If you don't believe that we are connected in this way, if it's just a nice thought that you have, like we're all one, man, then yes, I can understand how when somebody actually contributes to the unified source, it could be, you could sort of recoil out of that position and be like, well, that's selfish. But I don't believe that. I believe that my toes are in that water, and it's my duty to bring those things up and out. And I want all of you to know this channel will be better if everyone watching also creates. And I hope that's you. I hope that if you're somebody who's been wanting to create, that you do. Because we need it. We need you. Thanks.